She looked at the woman standing in the lobby of the Hartwell Grand and saw exactly what she wanted to see. She saw the worn flats. She saw the natural hair pulled back without ceremony. She saw brown skin and a canvas tote bag instead of a designer clutch. And she made a decision in under 4 seconds. What Diane Kellner, assistant manager of guest experience at the Hartwell Grand Hotel in Cedarbrook, Georgia, did not see was the eagle, globe, and anchor tattooed on the inside of the woman's left wrist. She didn't see the citation for valor framed above a fireplace 3 states away. She didn't see the career that had taken this woman from the muddy training grounds of Quantico to the marble halls of the Pentagon. She saw a problem to be managed, and she intended to manage it. What Kellner was about to discover was that you can judge a book by its cover, but sometimes the book judges back. The lobby of the Hartwell Grand was exactly the kind of place that made certain people feel powerful just by standing in it. 17-foot ceilings, white marble floors veined with gold, a chandelier the size of a small aircraft that cascaded down from the atrium like frozen rain. The hotel was the crown jewel of Cedarbrook, a mid-sized Georgia city that had gentrified itself in the last decade, trading its old textile economy for tech corridors and boutique hospitality. The Hartwell Grand charged $480 a night for its standard rooms. For that price, you got Egyptian cotton sheets, a rainfall shower, and the quiet but unmistakable message that this space was not for everyone. Colonel Vivienne Osequati knew exactly what the hotel cost. She had made the reservation herself 3 weeks prior, using her personal credit card and her rank, because she was in Cedarbrook for a reason that mattered. She was 46 years old, a colonel in the United States Marine Corps, and she was 1 day away from delivering the keynote address at the Southeastern Veterans Advocacy Summit, an event that drew legislators, nonprofit directors, and military families from across 6 states. The conference was hosted, in part, by the Hartwell Grand itself. Her name was printed on the event program in bold typeface. Her biography ran to 2 paragraphs. None of that was visible when she walked through the revolving glass doors at 4:17 on a Tuesday afternoon, carrying her own bag, wearing civilian clothes, dark slacks, a blue-grey blouse, and flats that had logged more miles than most people's cars. She had driven 4 hours from Fort Benning. She was tired. She wanted a room and a hot shower and maybe 30 minutes of silence before the evening's reception. She did not expect what came next. The check-in desk was staffed by a young man named Trevon, who smiled when he saw her and reached immediately for his keyboard. Before his fingers touched the keys, a hand appeared on his shoulder. Kellner materialized from a back office like she had been waiting. She was a woman in her late 40s, with a neat blonde chignon and a smile that had been professionally calibrated to communicate authority without warmth. She murmured something to Trevon. He hesitated. She murmured again, and he stepped back. Kellner moved behind the desk and looked at Vivienne Osequati with the kind of measured, patient expression usually reserved for small children and people who had wandered into the wrong building. "Can I help you find something?" Kellner asked. "I have a reservation," Vivienne said. Her voice was the kind of voice that had spent decades cutting through noise, briefing rooms, flight decks, tactical operation centers. She kept it level. Osequati, checking in. Kellner's expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes did. She typed slowly, deliberately, like someone performing a task they expected to fail. "I'm not seeing that. Try the full hyphenated name. OSEI-QERTEY. More typing. I'm still not finding it." Vivienne set her bag down on the polished floor. "I made the reservation on March 3rd. Confirmation number is HW7742 Alpha, room 812, King Suite, 2 nights. Kellner looked up. Her smile hadn't moved, but it had calcified somehow, become something hard wearing the shape of courtesy. "I'm sorry, our system is showing that room as occupied. We had an early check-in. Then I'd like a comparable room. We're fully committed this week, unfortunately. It's a busy conference season." A pause. "Is it possible you made the reservation through a third-party site? Sometimes those bookings don't transfer properly into our system. It can be confusing," she said, confusing the way some people say sweetie. "I booked directly through the hotel's website," Vivienne said, "and I have the email confirmation on my phone. Would you like to see it?" Kellner waved a hand. "That won't be necessary. What I can do is offer you a referral to the Comfort Suites on Prentice Avenue. It's only about 12 minutes away, and I believe they have availability. Completely adequate for..." She paused, a beat too long, What you need. The lobby had two other guests at the moment, a white man in a blazer on his phone near the elevator bay, and an older white couple reviewing a restaurant menu by the fireplace. Neither was being asked to find alternative accommodations. Vivienne looked at Kellner for a long moment, not with anger, not yet, but with the precise, unhurried assessment of a woman who had once calculated threat vectors in a Helmand province compound while taking mortar fire 40 meters away. She was reading the situation, she was reading Kellner, and she understood, with the tired clarity of a person who has had this experience before and knows exactly what it is, what was happening. "I would like to speak with the general manager," Vivienne said. "Mr. Hartfield is in a meeting." "Then I'll wait." Something shifted in Kellner's posture, a tightening. "Ma'am, I've explained the situation. There's no reservation in the system. I'm trying to help you find." "You haven't explained anything," Vivienne said. Her voice remained even, but it had acquired a quality, a compression, a density that made Trevon at the far end of the desk go very still. "You've told me a room I booked doesn't exist. You've told me a full hotel can't accommodate me, and you've suggested I go elsewhere. What you haven't done is show me the system, show me the reservation error, or call the manager. I'd like one of those three things to happen. Your choice." Kellner straightened. "I don't have to show you our internal systems." "No," Vivienne agreed. "You don't, but you might want to before this becomes a different kind of conversation. Are you threatening me?" "I'm informing you." Vivienne reached into her tote bag and produced her phone. "I have a confirmation email with a direct booking reference. I have a credit card charge for the first night already processed. And I have a name on the keynote program of a conference that is being held in this building tomorrow morning. So whatever story the system is telling you, I'd encourage you to read the next chapter before you ask me to leave." Kellner made a sound. Not quite a laugh, not quite a scoff, but somewhere in that latitude. "A conference program doesn't constitute a hotel reservation, ma'am. It constitutes a relationship with your hotel's events team," Vivienne said. "Who I'd also be happy to call, if that's easier." For the first time, something flickered in Kellner's performance. A micro-hesitation. She covered it quickly. "Why don't you take a seat in the lobby and I'll look into this further?" She said it with the tone of someone offering a child a chair while the adults handled things. Vivienne did not sit down. She stood where she was, near the desk, in full view of the lobby, and waited. Kellner disappeared into the back. Trevon did not make eye contact. The man in the blazer glanced over once, looked away. The couple by the fireplace had gone quiet. 8 minutes passed. Then the back office door opened again and Kellner returned. But she was not alone. Beside her was a man in his mid-50s with silver temples and a suit that cost more than Kellner's monthly salary. He had the practiced, unhurried movement of someone accustomed to resolving situations other people had created. This was Elliot Hartfield, general manager of the Hartwell Grand. He looked at Vivienne. His expression did something complicated in the first 3 seconds. Recognition, recalibration, a swift internal reckoning. And then he walked directly to the check-in desk and held out his hand. "Colonel Osi Quarty," he said. "I am so sorry. Please allow me." Kellner went rigid behind him. Hartfield was already at the keyboard, typing with 2 fingers, pulling up the reservation. "Here it is. Room 812, King Suite, 2 nights, arriving today. It's been in the system since March 3rd. He looked up and met Vivienne's eyes steadily. "Your room is ready. It has been ready. I don't know what happened during the check-in process, but I intend to find out." "I can explain." Kellner started. "Diane." Hartfield said it quietly, but the quiet itself was a door closing. "Please give us a moment." Kellner stood very still for 3 full seconds. Then she stepped back. Hartfield personally escorted Vivienne to the elevator. He apologized twice more during the walk. He upgraded her to the 8th floor corner suite at no additional charge. He sent up a fruit and cheese arrangement with a handwritten note within the hour. None of that was the end of the story. It was barely the beginning. Because while Hartfield was apologizing and Trevon was avoiding eye contact, and Kellner was composing herself in the back office, the lobby's other occupants had not been idle. The man in the blazer by the elevator bay had not been on a personal call. His name was Gerald Okonkwo, and he was a journalist. He covered civil rights and veterans affairs for a national publication, and he was in Cedarbrook to write a feature on the Veterans Advocacy Summit. He had arrived at the hotel an hour early to interview a source in the bar, and he had witnessed every minute of the exchange at the check-in desk. He had not filmed it. He had not needed to. He had taken notes. He had a good memory. He had a deadline. He also recognized Vivienne Osi because he had read her biography in the conference program 3 times while preparing for his piece. By the time Vivienne was settling into her upgraded suite, Gerald Okonkwo was sitting in the hotel bar with his notebook open and his recorder running, talking to 2 members of the hotel's own events staff who had heard about what happened from Trevon and were not, as it turned out, particularly loyal to Diane Kellner. The events coordinator, a young woman named Priscilla Dane, had been coordinating with the summit's organizers for 6 weeks. She knew the speaker list. She knew Colonel O.C. Quarty's name. When Gerald mentioned what had happened at the desk, Priscilla set down her coffee and said, without hesitation, "That's not the first time Diane's done that." By morning, Gerald's article was drafted. By the following afternoon, when the Veterans Advocacy Summit opened with Vivienne O.C. Quarty walking to the podium in her full dress uniform. 4 rows of ribbons, her Eagle rank insignia, the quiet physical authority of a woman who had been in service for 23 years. The story was already circulating. The keynote was recorded and streamed live. 4,700 people watched it in real time. 4,700 people then learned, via the article that ran at noon, that the woman at the podium had been asked the previous day to try the comfort suites on Prentice Avenue. The response was not a slow burn, it was a detonation. Within 6 hours, the Hartwell Grand's rating on every major platform had collapsed. The calls began before dinner, not from ordinary guests, but from the Veterans Advocacy Summit's organizational committee, from 2 sitting state senators who were attending the conference, and from the office of a congressman whose district included Cedarbrook, and who had, in previous election cycles, made his support of military families a centerpiece of his campaign. The hotel's parent company, a regional hospitality group called Sterling Meridian Properties, received 4 calls before 7 p.m. from entities that collectively managed contracts with 3 military installations in the southeast. 2 of those contracts included preferred accommodations agreements that directed traveling service members to Sterling Meridian Properties. Those calls were not friendly. Elliot Hartfield spent the evening on the phone and did not eat dinner. Diane Kellner spent the evening with her phone off and did not sleep. The next morning, when Vivienne came down for breakfast before the summit's second day, she found Hartfield waiting for her in the lobby. He was alone. He looked like a man who had aged several years overnight. "Colonel," he said, "I owe you more than an apology. I owe you an explanation of what I've found." He told her what he had learned in the last 18 hours. The reservation had been in the system. Kellner had accessed it. There was a log. Hotels keep logs, digital trails of every keystroke at every desk terminal, that showed Kellner had pulled up the reservation, looked at the name, and moved it to a pending cancellation queue. Not cancelled, just moved, plausibly deniable. A trick that left no visible error message, but made the reservation appear to disappear from the standard check-in screen. It was not the first time the log had shown something like this. "We found 3 other instances," Hartfield said, his voice low and ashamed. "Going back 14 months, guests with certain names, certain profiles. Each time, the reservation was rerouted. Each time, Diane handled the check-in personally." Vivienne listened. She had the expression of someone who is not surprised but is choosing to register the information carefully anyway. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "She's been placed on immediate administrative leave," Hartfield said, "pending a full investigation. I've also contacted our corporate office and our legal team. We are opening an internal civil rights review, and I have personally reached out to the other affected guests to offer apologies and restitution." He paused. "I want to do this correctly. I wanted you to hear it from me directly." Vivienne nodded once. "I appreciate that. Is there anything?" Hartfield started. "There is one thing," she said. She asked him to make a donation, not to her, not on her behalf, to the Veterans Advocacy Summit's Emergency Assistance Fund, which supported service members and military families facing housing instability. The number she named was not small. Hartfield didn't blink. "Consider it done." She walked into the breakfast room, poured herself a cup of coffee, and sat down by the window overlooking the atrium. There was one more chapter to the story, and it was the one that people were still talking about 3 weeks later. Kellner had not, as it turned out, simply gone home during her administrative leave and waited quietly. She had gone to the press. Not Gerald Okonkwo's publication, which had already run its story with her name and job title in the fourth paragraph, but to a local Cedarbrook news outlet that had a reputation for a certain kind of sympathy. She gave an interview. She said she had been following hotel policy. She said the check-in system was unreliable. She said she had been trying to help the guest find alternative options during a period of high occupancy. She said she was a 20-year hospitality professional who was being made a scapegoat. She did not mention the log. Gerald Okonkwo did. His follow-up piece ran 48 hours after Kellner's interview. It included screenshots of the digital access log, obtained through a source inside the hotel, showing the timestamp of Kellner's access to Vivienne's reservation and the rerouting action. It included the 3 prior instances. It included the names of 2 of the other affected guests, who had agreed to speak on the record about their own experiences at the Hartwell Grand's front desk. It also included a single quote from Vivienne Osi-Quarty, the only statement she gave to any media outlet throughout the entire incident. "I spent 23 years in the United States Marine Corps because I believe in the institutions of this country and what they're supposed to stand for. I was prepared to walk out of that lobby and find somewhere else to sleep. I've slept in worse places. What I wasn't prepared to do was pretend I didn't know what was happening, because pretending is how it keeps happening." That quote was shared 240,000 times. Sterling Meridian Properties issued a formal public statement. They announced the termination of Diane Kellner, the implementation of mandatory civil rights and anti-discrimination training across all 11 of their properties, and the appointment of an independent civil rights auditor to review guest services practices for the previous 2 years. They also announced that they were renaming the event space at the Hartwell Grand, previously called the Founders Hall, the Veteran and Community Honours Room, and that Colonel Vivienne Osi-Quarty had been invited to return to the hotel for its first event in the renamed space. She accepted. The week Kellner's termination was confirmed, she filed for unemployment. The claim was reviewed and, in accordance with Georgia state guidelines for terminations resulting from workplace misconduct, denied. Her attorney, a man who had taken the case expecting it to settle quietly withdrew from the representation when the digital log evidence became public record. She had difficulty finding work in hospitality after that. The industry is smaller than it looks, and names travel. There is a lesson in this story, and it is not the one that Diane Kellner thought she was teaching when she stepped in front of Trevon at the check-in desk that Tuesday afternoon. She thought she was enforcing an unspoken rule about who belonged in certain spaces. She thought she was protecting something. She thought she was safe because she had done it before, and before that, and before that, and nothing had happened. What she didn't understand, what people like her rarely understand, is that the absence of consequences is not the same thing as the absence of a record. Everything leaves a trace. The log showed it. The pattern showed it. The other guests, the ones who had taken their tote bags and their quiet dignity and found somewhere else to sleep, had still existed. Their names had still been in the system. The evidence had been there the whole time, waiting for someone to look. Colonel Vivienne Osi-Quarty did not raise her voice once during that check-in. She did not threaten. She did not perform her rank or her record or her resume for a woman who had already decided not to see her. She just stood at that desk and refused to disappear, and that refusal, quiet and immovable as a load-bearing wall, brought down everything Kellner had built on the assumption that certain people could be redirected without consequence. True power doesn't announce itself in a lobby. It doesn't need to. It just stands there and waits for the truth to catch up. If this story stayed with you, hit the like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Echoes of Justice so you never miss a story about what happens when dignity holds the line. And drop a comment below. Do you think the system failed here, or did it finally work the way it was supposed to? The answer might be more complicated than you think.